What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. We are live to thrive. It is a brand new episode of Bets and Banter, and today on the show, we're talking about none other than UFC 317 International Fight Week. It's all going down in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada, and it's going down on Saturday. We got two title fights at the top of the bill, and you know that we can't do it alone on Bets and Banter. We got a great guest once again. Brother Wiz is not in the building today. It is a brother from another from the great state of New York, Pepe Silvia. My brother, how are you?
Liam, it's an honor to break this card down with you. I'm excited. You know, now that I'm not making content anymore, like I'm a little more energized about jumping on these streams. I was talking to Dogfather yesterday about how just talking about fights out loud adds an extra level of thoroughness to your breakdowns and analysis. So it helps me in my capping, talking to people about the fights out loud. Sometimes I'm inspired by something that we say, or, you know, someone says something that I didn't actually think about, or me just talking about it, you know, brings to fruition a different idea about the fight. So I'm looking forward to this because this card is pretty difficult. I've been kind of back and forth with a couple of these fights, done a lot of tape. So the work is put in. I'm kind of just, you know, putting the puzzle together, so to speak, in my head and figuring out where I want to be making my final investments.
I absolutely love it. And I know that you haven't been as public with all your stuff, but my man, I'm seeing you crushing out there. That Gustafsson play, one of the bets of the year. I had written up a little bit in my Roto Grinders article about how I thought it was possible. I didn't go out there and take all the units home with me. So hats off to you for that, brother. A sharp play. Shout out to everybody who's rocking with us in the chat as well. We got a lot of people starting to file in. So without further ado, my brother, let's get started with the first fight of the night. And these are two guys I'll admit I had never heard of before this week. All respect to these guys, Jackson McVey, Christopher Ewert. They're both fighting on the regional scene. You got a Fury fighter in Christopher Ewert. You got Jackson McVey. I think he's done some fighting in the LFA most recently. So interesting spot here. The Moose taking on El Tanque, a Chilean kickboxer, a American brawler that also has got a good clinch game, some opportunistic submissions. We'll kick it to my guest first. Pepe, how do you feel about this first fight of the night?
Yeah, man. I think this is actually a pretty good fight. You know, two regional guys who clearly are ready for steps up in competition. If you go through their record, they fought, especially on the McVey side. Like there's a bunch of red flags on his side. His level of competition is horrible. Whereas Ewert has fought the better level of competition. Another thing, McVey is getting a lot of these finishes super quick. He's known for his jiu-jitsu. He's been practicing jiu-jitsu for 10 years. So he's kind of got like the Zach Reese thing going on where, like, you know, you don't want to call it a meme, but he's pretty good at finishing. But the thing is, he's fighting super low level competition. So you want to pump the brakes on thinking that this guy is super good or that he can do this at the next level, because we see it all the time where these guys are getting quick finishes over really low level competition. And when they finally face someone who is battle tested and is a bit well-rounded, you know, suddenly their game goes out the window. And they usually look for the door. You see it a lot. So Ewert, what I like about him is he's fought the higher level of competition. He's fought 15 minutes. He's fought through adversity. And, you know, I like that, you know, he's training with Waldo Cortez Acosta. He's Chilean. These South American guys are, you know, a lot of times they're beasts. They're a lot tougher than, you know, a lot of these American guys, jiu-jitsu guys, especially, no offense. But so, like, you know,
I'm a wrestler first. All right. Let's make that very clear.
That's true. But like, from a money line perspective, I like the Ewert side. I wouldn't go absolutely crazy with, like, you know, maybe laying -200 because, and the reason why I think Ewert is the money line side is because I think McVey is sub 1 or bust, honestly. You know, even in one of his amateur fights where he got the triangle right before he made his pro debut, they're like, oh, this is, you know, 3-minute rounds. This is like just the second round had just started. The commentators are like, oh, you know, he's gassing out already. Like, I think he hit a cardio win. It's like, dude, this is 4 minutes into the fight, and then he ends up getting a triangle. So he's got good finishing. He's got good submissions. So the only worry for the Ewert side, personally, I think, is just a round 1 submission. But Ewert is pretty impressive. You know, he was lined up for the Contender Series fight against Pamprov, against a guy I think that he could have beaten pretty easily. So I think he was going to be making his way to the UFC. Like I said, he trains with Waldo Cortez Acosta. Yeah, he's a tough guy. He's shown a ton. He's shown heart in his fights, and his striking is pretty solid. I think he's going to get the knockout here.
I definitely see where you're coming from, man. Like when I watch McVey, he seems to me like a guy who's probably going to lose fights if he's forced to stay at distance. You know, like he doesn't seem like the most comfortable striker, the most natural striker. But I do think kind of like, you know, your guy, Andreas Gustafsson, somebody we mentioned before, a welterweight version of a similar kind of game plan, right? He's looking to get a hold of you. Even though he's a bigger guy, he's looking to get close to you, leverage that size to try and make you uncomfortable in the clinch. And most of the time when he's hurting somebody, he's doing it from clinch strikes, right? Knees to the body have been a big weapon for him. Those elbows inside as well. The thing about Ewert that I did not like about his tape was that there was a few times where he got put to the ground. And like, I honestly, dude, I think his ground game is nothing. Like it's bad. It's defensive in nature, right? So he's got survival instincts, right? He's willing to scramble. He doesn't just settle on the bottom and say like, all right, you finished me. Like I'm down here. But he does seem to me like a guy who's kind of moving, with all due respect, like a spaz, you know? And like, if you've got a guy who's been training jiu-jitsu 10 years on top of you and you're moving like a spaz, you're probably going to get put in some awkward, bad situations. So that's for me why I was a little bit surprised by the line move here. I feel like this is an honest fight, right? In the sense that I know how McVey wins this fight in my view, which is like he gets a hold of this guy and this guy doesn't really have much to do about it. I know how McVey loses this fight, which is he can't get a hold of this guy and this guy just tunes him up, hits him with the body work. You know, I think the thing that's impressive about Ewert is the fact that he can go to the body, the head, the calf. He kind of mixes up his targets a little bit. And I think that's the best part of his game, right? In that way, I think he can probably win more UFC level fights. But I feel his grappling is very untested. He's fought 3 guys with a winning record as a pro, right? McVey fought Wes Schultz, and that's his only loss as an amateur. He fought a couple guys that went on to have like real pro careers as amateurs. So I think that maybe his record looks worse than it is, right? Like when you go pro, your goal is get highlight reel knockouts and get to the UFC, because the UFC has made it abundantly clear. They don't care about the competition. They care about, do you finish people? That's it. So it's like, you finish people on the Contender Series or elsewhere, we'll sign you to the UFC, we'll give you a chance. And most of these guys aren't all that good. But McVey is a real test of Ewert's grappling, which I haven't seen much of yet. I will say that AJ Chambers guy took him down, got the mount, got the back, had every position he wanted, fell over the top, making bad decisions. And then, in my humble opinion, he didn't want to be there anymore, right? They stood back up, they exchanged maybe 4 strikes, and he was out of the fight. So I don't know what happened to his rib. Maybe he did hurt his rib. I'm not trying to, say, but like the guy just clearly did not want to fight anymore when they got back up to the feet. I'd just leave it there. So I think Ewert has done a decent job, but 2 of his 3 fights against guys with winning records have gone off 15 minutes. So he's got more proven cardio. That's a checkbox in his direction. But also, can you not finish these regional level guys? Is that why you're going 15 full minutes with them? And that for me is still an open question mark. So that last fight, like he did everything fine, but was I blown away by the performance? I'll be honest, I wasn't. I thought he was just a middling guy. I don't think he's the most dangerous guy I've ever seen. So yeah, for me, it feels like an honest fight. My article pick was McVey sub. But I do think that the way he loses this fight is exactly how you laid it out, right? And I think if you're betting on more proven stand-up fundamentals and cardio, makes sense to me. But this is a guy in McVey who signs the fight SD Dumas, right? Line flips to favor. Everybody's loving this guy. And then all of a sudden, new opponent gets put in. And now he got put in, like Tuesday or something? Like, I don't think Ewert has a lot of time to prepare for this. So I think whatever grappling he has, he's bringing it on Saturday. And I just don't know if it's enough, honestly. So for me, we're going to go head to head on the first one, and I'm going to take McVey by sub. Do you have any follow up to that?
Yeah, a couple of things. Before you compare him to the GOAT, Andreas Gustafsson, my guy needs to go at least 15 minutes in a fight, or at least, go through some sort of war or adversity before he can get compared to Andreas Gustafsson. I don't have you seen McVey take a clean strike yet?
Not really. I've watched like his last 3 fights, and honestly, like against that level of competition, it's hard to know. I will say I tried to find his fight that went to decision against that guy who's like 4-1 as a pro. I couldn't find the footage. So if anybody has that footage out there, go ahead and send that to the DMs or hit me in the comments down below. I'd love to watch it. But honestly, man, no, I struggled to find footage that was relevant in that regard.
Yeah. And I do also want to add this. If you go to Ewert's Instagram, he's got a couple YouTube links in his bio where he's doing some rolling. His jiu-jitsu. I don't really know if you're going to be able to take too much, but what it told me is at least he's working on it. He's aware of it. I think his coach, he's got the same coach as Waldo. And I know,
Waldo, I must say, looked better than I expected against Sergey. Like I had thought he's going to look terrible because he's training with nobody. And again, respectfully, but yeah, he looked way better.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I was kind of like comparing him a little bit to Waldo because they have the same coach, and Waldo can be taken down, but he works his way up all the time, and they kind of have some similar qualities in that regard. But it's definitely a volatile fight.
Absolutely, brother. And that's why UFC debutante on UFC debutante crime. Expect volatility. I think that's in my write-up for this fight. I could definitely see it going either way, but give me the grappler because that's how I roll.
Maybe under 1.5.
Somebody go out there and make a critical error, boys. I think you both are capable. So speaking of making a critical error, I think it would take one for Jonathan Diniz to lose this one, my brother. All due respect to Alvin Guzzi Hines on the other side. I think Alvin Hines is a fun regional level fighter, but I just don't know that he's got the juice beyond that. That submission win over Philip Latu, when I taped Latu for Contender Series, I kind of thought that was a Fugazi stoppage. So I think that Hines has a decent, well-rounded skill set that'll beat regional level heavyweights, and I just don't expect him to get takedowns in this fight. So if he's not getting takedowns, it's 2 men swinging leather. Could they, theoretically hurt one another? Sure, I suppose. But I just think the knee's way more proven, way more experience. He's got UFC level wins. Frankly, that win over Carl Williams, a little bit weird, but I'd take Carl Williams head to head over Alvin Hines like pretty easily without much thought. So I think Jonathan Diniz wins this one and probably via devastating knockout in the first round or two. What do you think?
Yeah. Shout out to whoever was steaming the Alvin Hines opener on Bet Online, because Diniz opened minus 800 and then some money came in on Hines, and then other books picked up the line a couple days later and had Diniz at like minus 200 and minus 250 for a couple days, which I hit pretty big. And, like where it is now, would I lay minus 350? No. I think I cap it around minus 400. So, there is some risk involved with this one because, for me, it's just such a big level jump from who Hines was fighting to fighting Diniz. The speed, the striking, it's just, they're in different dimensions. And then Hines' wrestling really isn't impressive at all. Like, this is a guy who got into professional MMA 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And, he works full time. God bless him. He's a fun fighter on LFA. He hasn't been fucking tested in the slightest. And, I'm happy he made it to the UFC. He's a guy that I like to root for. And like I said, he's fun on the LFA Minnesota scene. So this is first 2 fights of the night. I'm fading the local Minnesota talent. I got Diniz in this one.
There you go, brother. I think Minnesota goes 1-1 here, but I don't like the chances for Alvin Guzzi Hines. If you ever watch his fights, he's doing the, shin tap gimmick. He's looking for these head kick knockouts and stuff. But guys, just watch the quality of guys he's fighting. No disrespect, but these guys don't look like professional athletes, much less professional fighters. So again, they're guys that try hard and go out and fight and put on a show. But I just think it's a way different level. Denise is fighting world-class kickboxers for the last 10 years. So.
I will say this, that Hines looks like he has a hell of a chin though. So I don't really know if it's going to be like a super quick knockout, to be honest. It could be a round 2 knockout. It could go to decision. I wouldn't be shocked if he won 30-27.
Fair enough, man. Yeah, I don't think Denise is like the heaviest handed guy, but just the way that these two match up, like the size is also a huge factor for me in my write-up.
Yeah.
Like a massive reach advantage, big height. So is he going to reach him with the high kick? Fuck no. Is he going to be able to touch him with the hands? Not unless he gets real close. So, I think Hines is basically drawing dead to takedowns or a mean punch here. And I think the price that you got is appropriate. Oh, speaking of fights where we don't have much to say, unless you've got a bold take on the underdog here, my man, I will say I think Jacoby Smith is going to do a violent crime against Nico Price in the first round. So what do you got, brother?
Yeah, I don't the price is about right on this one. I agree with market sentiment.
Yeah, man, I'll close us off here with saying, I think Jacoby Smith is a real prospect. He's a dangerous out for anybody. And the thing is, normally when I'm looking at guys I want to fade in this huge price range, it's guys that I don't think have a backup plan, right? So he goes out there, he could definitely knock this guy out in the first round. But if he needs to wrestle Nico Price for 15 full minutes, I think he could wrestle Nico Price quite easily for 15 full minutes. So that's the reason why I think, am I laying minus 1,600? Of course not. But do I disagree? No, I do not. So best of luck to Nico Price. I said earlier, pray for Nico Price. Nothing has happened to him. He just has to fight Jacoby Smith on Saturday. So that is what I'm not looking forward to for it. Go ahead.
He could always win by DQ, right?
Hey, it's a path. It's a path. I think that Jacoby KO1 is the most likely outcome here by a pretty wide margin. And honestly, Dixon says it's the Jacoby sub live. At the price, I don't like it. He's never really shown a propensity to go for them. I think he's a violence first fighter. You watch him wrestle, he's trying to wrestle people violently. So I just think this guy's trying to smash people's faces. I don't think he wants subs. I don't think he's going to jiu-jitsu class. I bet he goes to MMA grappling class and throws people around. You feel me? All right, next up, man, this might be the better Super Bowl, right? We got Terrence McKinney. ABC say always bet against Terrence McKinney or always bet on cardio, whichever way you want to say it. On the other side, though, you got Slava Borshev. The guy's just been do you want to take down? Then you've got to take that. It's just been pretty easy sledding for a lot of guys that wanted to wrestle him. I will say, I think I was there in person when Mark Diakese stunk up the joint in Columbus, Ohio, just taking this guy down with impunity for the entire duration of the contest. So when I look at this fight, man, this is Terrence McKinney needs to win this or he's just not going to ever do anything with his career. Because I look at Terrence and he's got way better wrestling than Slava. He's got better power and durability on the feet by a slight margin. But Slava picks better targets. Slava has more durability and staying power when shit goes sideways. And he's got better cardio. So for me, it feels like Terrence McKinney either is going to show, I have the cardio to wrestle for 15 minutes like every other guy that's wanted to wrestle Slava has been able to. Or he's probably going to be needing that first or second round finish like he's needed throughout his whole career. He's seen 1/3 round as a professional. He's had 23 pro fights. So for me, I'm never laying chalk on Terrence McKinney. You're not going to see me doing that. I just think that this fight ends violently more often than not. I don't think Terrence can take great shots on the feet. I think he's a good hammer, bad nail. We've seen that in the Dober fight. We saw that against Nazim. He can go out there and have real success on offense against good fighters. But if it doesn't work, he will then fold the tent later on. So for me, I don't really have much except for I think this fight ends violently. And if McKinney can't sub this guy in the first 2 rounds, he's probably got to start asking some hard questions. What do you think, brother?
So I think the real question of this fight is, does McKinney submit Slava in round one. Have you seen from your analysis on McKinney, is his submission game powerful enough, intelligent enough, good enough, slick enough to be able to get Slava, or is McKinney just going to go for like a rear naked choke the whole time? This one is difficult because I really want to try to figure out if McKinney's going to get this round one finish, because I'm going to load up on him in DraftKings if that's what I come to the conclusion of. I like the under, obviously. Depending on the price, I think under minus 200 is fine. If it's hitting minus 200, that's probably too much juice for me. But
minus 220 best available.
Yeah. Slava looks fucking washed, man. Like he's not the same fighter. But the thing is, like he's gotten taken down. He's gotten taken down by a bunch of guys in the UFC, and he's fought, out of these bad positions. But like, I don't. The Hooper fight, like the ref could have easily stopped that fight. I feel like he's been kind of fortunate, right, to not have gotten finished. Like, granted, he has a lot of heart.
Henley St. Louis, another example from way back. But yes, you're right that it's a minor miracle he's never been stopped with strikes.
Yeah. So, like, do you think McKinney is going to be able to get the submission, or do you think Slava knows how to defend a rear naked choke and that's that?
I'm going back to look real quick because I need to fact check myself here. If I had this bet or not. Okay, so I didn't bet Chase Hooper KO against Slava. Otherwise, I would probably puke in my hands again right now, having seen it. But I will say this. I bet Terrence McKinney. I bet Chase Hooper plus 123 against Slava Borshev. And I will just tell you guys, like, Chase Hooper is a way better fighter than Terrence McKinney. Like, just not even close, right? Like, he is a better, more functional fighter. He can fight hard for 15 minutes. He has excellent ground and pound. He has excellent submissions. He's got great pace. Like, there's a lot of things that he does that makes him hard to beat. He's 8-3 in the UFC as a result. He's also harder to beat. Like Terrence McKinney's just easier to beat. So the thing that makes this hard for me is like, dude, if you line up Terrence McKinney for the same punch that Chase Hooper dropped fucking Slava with, he might send him to the emergency room. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Slava takes a very good punch. Despite being a good kickboxer, he's been in a lot of fights. So I think he takes a punch quite poorly. That's why I said, somebody said, I don't know if McKinney has good durability. I know that he doesn't. But I still think it might be slightly better than a guy like Slava, honestly. If you watch back, like Terrence McKinney against Drew Dober is another fight where it's like he's having success. He's coming forward. Drew was on the verge of being knocked out, but then he kind of let him get back into the fight. He let him rally there. And I think that McKinney's been his own worst enemy, right? Like on offense, he looks great. But if you start to get some offense going back on him, he just starts to mentally freeze. I honestly think it's a mental problem, not a physical problem. The guy probably does all his work in training and then shows up and he gasses out again. So for me, I think that he's going to have the back in the first round. Like, I can put it that way. I think he's going to land a big punch on Slava or take him down in the first round. I just don't know if he's a competent enough finisher. Like that Nazim fight, Nazim is like Slava in that he's not the best grappler you've ever seen, but he's very tough. He's not just going to give it to you, right? You actually have to choke him out. You actually have to put him in a real hold where he can't get out. And I even think that Chase Hooper stoppage, and I say this as a guy who bet Chase, and frankly, I think Chase beats him any way he wants to, and we've seen enough to know that. But when you go back and look, like, Chase didn't even submit him, bro. Like, Chase kind of just like had him in a hold, and then the guy was like, "Yeah, let's," he beat him up so much, and he's choking him now. And Slava like looks at the guy like, "What the fuck?" Like, so I think Slava is the kind of guy you got to kill him, And I think McKinney has the power and the tools to kill him, but do I think he's consistent enough? Like, I just don't, So for me, like McKinney should win this fight, but I'd make him like a minus 135, because like I think he's got better skills, but if I can't trust you to fight for 15 minutes, it's very hard to make you like a pure favorite. Same thing with McVey, right? Like, I'm not saying McVey should be a favorite. I just think it's close to pick him because in the early going, I think he's the more dangerous guy. But like, this is the same kind of feel for me. McKinney is a guy I actually know that he gasses out, right? Like, unlike this other guy where I'm speculating maybe he's going to gas out. It's like, no, McKinney gasses out every time. So for me, man, I think McKinney's going to have great positions early. I would be looking for Slava live entries, honestly. I like that side,
Yeah.
especially because I think he's probably going to have Terrence on his back, beating him up, like running through him a little bit in the first round. But I know how that story ends sometimes, you know?
Yeah, I wouldn't be playing the ends by KO because McKinney could get the rear naked choke. The thing, so the way I'm kind of seeing it is, and you know, there's a new element that I was thinking about regarding the under 1.5 for this fight specifically is, you know, with they're able to do the 12-6 elbows now, which is add a bigger depth to the ground and pound and TKO stoppages because, you know, those just look so violent, man. Like I've never taken one, but they look like they are very unpleasant to take from bottom position. And I know Slava is super tough and, you know, he has a ton of heart. You know, it's funny watching him squirm around and kick his legs up. Like the guy has no idea what he's doing. And, you know, I think McKinney could, you know, pass his guard very easy, slice through, and then have him mounted, and then just kind of being elbowing his head, and you know the ref has to step in.
I could definitely see that, man. Like at the end of the day, if you're giving your back to Kenley St. Louis, if you're giving your back to like most guys that fight you, like the difference I think between Mike Davis and what's the other guy and Mark Diakase, they don't try to submit anybody hardly. You know, like I think Mike has submitted one guy maybe in the UFC. I'd have to double check these facts. This is off the top of my head. But like they wrestle and like grapple hard. They don't go for that many subs, bro. Like that was going to UFC stats.
Mike Davis had Ziem in some trouble, but to that point, McKinney submitted for Ziem in round 1. So
and he pulled guard in that fucking fight, dude. Like that, I honestly don't know what happened in that performance, but like. That was the weirdest fucking start to a fight I think I've ever seen, bro.
He was huffing paint in the changing room.
It was that event. I love when the UFC goes international. It just mixes in a couple new variables for you, right? The guys after the fight tell you, I was huffing paint in the back, my bad. But looking at it, McKinney is averaging 1.4 sub attempts per 15 minutes. Like that just feels to me like he's probably going to have a good position and a sub attempt in this fight. So take that for whatever it's worth. I kind of lean towards McKinney sub. I think I picked him by sub in his last fight, and he got the TKO. So hard to get a read on this guy McKinney, but the path is there.
It is hard to get a read because the guys that the UFC are giving him like the worst fucking possible, like the easiest fucking guys. So like, yeah, he's breezing through them like easily, but it's like, how much are we really learning about this guy? Like. And then they give him these steps up in competition where he's failed, but then these guys who has beaten them have proven to be way better than Slava and are actually like serious prospects of the division. Maybe not like top 5, but top 15. You know, 10 to 15 range with Esteban Ribovics, Nazim Sadikov, and. Who is the other one?
Ismail Bonfim, and I had Bonfim KO2 there. That was fucking electric.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, it's hard to get a true read on where he's at. Like, he's still only 30 years old. And, like, I know people are going to, you know, give him shit because he has a salty record. But I don't know, man. This is, you know, for me, like, McKinney round 1 or pass.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I think that's really worth mentioning here as well, like Terrence McKinney has wins over Fares Ziam, like you mentioned, and also Matt Frivola in 7 seconds. And like those are quite obviously better than anything Slava's ever done in his career. So like for me, that's like why I think it defaults to McKinney as a favorite here. And to your point, the losses, you can mostly justify them as like, hey, those guys are pretty good. You know, the Bonfim one, I think is the one that's a little bit more hit and miss, but that's just because he has more to prove still in the UFC.
Yeah.
But I wanted to just address the chat real quick. My guy, Robot Chicken Wing, says no Wiz tonight. Couldn't make it tonight. We're going to have a post-weigh-in show for you tomorrow. So if you're looking for Wiz, you'll still get some Wiz in your life. But we got a great guest, Pepe Silvia, in the building. Any closing thoughts on this one, my brother, before we move to the next?
No. I think we covered that one pretty well.
Fuck yeah. To the next one, Tracy Cortez taking on Vivian Araujo. And I'll let you kick this off, my brother. We got two ladies going at it here. I don't know if there's much to delve into from a betting standpoint, but I'm curious if you think so.
Yeah, initially I was thinking that this could be a Araujo spot because if you look at Cortez in her past couple fights, you know, she lost against Rose, and then she got a couple wins in a row. But in the last 4 fights that she's fought in the UFC, when has she ever looked like a big favorite? She hasn't. So that's the thing with, like, she's minus 260 against Vivi. And I get it. People don't want to play her, myself included, because she's 38 years old. She just cashed as a big underdog. Is she really going to do it twice in a row? Cortez is younger. She has the wrestling upside. One of the angles that I was hoping was going to be really sneaky for this, but I was unimpressed with what the books offered, was Araujo by submission. I was hoping for like 15 or 16 to 1 on that, but its best price available is 10 to 1. That's a little thin considering that she hasn't got one in the UFC at all. And
literally zero.
Yeah, and Cortez has never been submitted, so I don't know.
She was in her first fight, I believe. I'd have to double check that, but I think her first pro fight in 2017, she got submitted. I think that's her only loss per UFC.
Okay, yeah, and so the thing with, like, I think there's going to be some. I don't know if it's ever going to come to fruition with Araujo getting a submission in the UFC, because she's at the end of her career. You know, how many more fights is she going to have after this? 2 maybe max. But the thing is, she looked solid in the Karine Silva fight. She looked solid. And Karine Silva she's decent. You know, she's decent. Her against Cortez would be a good fight. I think this fight could definitely be competitive. Karine Silva was in a very deep armbar in round 2 by Araujo. Awesome.
So was Amanda Hebos. This is one of my tweets, brother. You know me.
So deep armbar with Ribas, Karine Silva, and then the phantom tap against Caitlin Chookagian at the end of round 1, I want to say. Had her in a deep mounted guillotine, I want to say. And so she's got these very close submissions that haven't come home. Those are the kind of things you want to see. But when you back someone at huge submission numbers who's never got one in the UFC, maybe the sports book are sleeping. But clearly they're looking at the attempts, which I don't think they used to do before. So I'm completely passing on everything here.
Yeah, dude, I think you kind of nailed how you look at this fight, you know, on the Vivi side, because the truth is, man, like, number one, she's been outlanded 7 fights in a row on significant strikes. That's dire, right? Like, that's really not a good look. On the other side, she gets out wrestled sometimes. You know, it's not like she's consistently winning the wrestling battle. Hey, I give up these strikes, but like I always get on top. I always control. Not really that either, right? So I do think optically she's a horrible fighter. You know, just like a lot of what she does, like unless she can hurt you with one big punch or get a round-winning submission attempt or something like that, a lot of what she does is kind of drawing to her opponent needing to gas. And like Karine Silva, I was like, is probably going to have some success early, but unless she's able to get the finish or, you know, dominate rounds 1 and 2, it's going to get a little dicey down the stretch because Karine Silva, known gasser. She was gassing against Yan Kui Kui. So I think that when we look back, she finished that girl, by the way, too, but she was exhausted. So you look back, Tracy Cortez, she can land over 100 significant strikes. She showed that against Jasmine Jasudavicius. And frankly, if she can't replicate that game plan here, that's an indictment of her. Because it's like Jasmine's a better fighter, right, than Vivi, in my opinion. The difference is Jasmine is more brute strength, physicality, come forward, get in your face, impose physicality. And she wasn't able to do that to Tracy. Tracy used the footwork. She used the jab. She used her boxing. I think that she could do exactly that here and win a unanimous decision. Her problem in the UFC has been she's been incredibly boring, right? She hasn't finished a fight. She has 2 finishes in her career. But on the other side, again, I look back at Viviane Araújo because I'm looking for how do I get my way to that side, right? Plus 200. Or it's just like she finished 1 girl in the UFC. It was her UFC debut in 2019. She hurt somebody with strikes that went like 0-3 in the UFC. Like at a certain point, it's just like this girl is a little bit below the real girls in the division. right? Almost everybody she fights that's a very quality, solid girl, she ends up losing the fight on the cards. And I just think it's going to happen again here. I think Tracy Cortez by decision. Boring. I hate to be that guy, right? I'd love to come up with something so interesting, but like unless Tracy is able to pace her down the stretch or something like that, I think Tracy's going to do what her coaches tell her: jab from the outside, move around, get a takedown if she needs to swing the round, and that's about it. I don't expect much more than that, but
yeah,
for me, it's just a pass.
Another thing, which is a bit of a narrative thing. Have you been to the T-Mobile Arena before for a fight night or for a pay-per-view?
I've never even been to the state of Nevada, my brother, so I got a lot to learn.
So I've been there a few times, and it's generally a very pro-Mexican crowd there. And Cortez, I'm pretty sure Cortez beat Jasmine at T-Mobile, right?
We'll check right now because I don't remember off the top of my head, but that would track. That makes sense to me. I'm getting that information right now. So we got Tracy fought Jasmine in September 16th, 2023. Grasso Shevchenko 2 in Vegas. You are absolutely on the money.
Yeah, because I've been there for a couple of fights. I remember Aldana versus Chiesa I was there for, and there's always a lot of Mexican fans there. They really show out, so they're definitely trying to push Cortez in this spot.
You have nailed that, because the other thing I wanted to mention, guys, I don't always talk about the social media A-sides and everything because I know some of you guys don't care. We try and focus on the matchups and the betting odds and things like that. However, I put together a sheet every week with the social media A-side report, and I'm going to show you guys on screen really quick because I think it's actually worth showing on this fight. So one thing that I do, guys, is I rank order the social media followings just to get an idea of like who's a star, and you look, obviously, it makes sense. The main event has the 2 biggest stars on the card. Guys, the 3rd biggest star on the card, and it's not close. Tracy Cortez, by the number. So Tracy Cortez moves units, right? She gets eyeballs and attention. That's what the UFC is looking to do. With all due respect, Viviane Araújo is on the other side. She's just a real fighter. She's just a tough girl. And she's 38 going on 39. I don't like anything for her in this situation. She did not make the top 14, 15 in terms of those social media followings, and that tells you a lot of what you need to know. The UFC is not rooting for her here. Could she win? Sure. Will she win? I don't think so. And I think we're going to see the scorecards with these 2 ladies way more often than not, right? The odds will tell you the same thing. Are they going to give it to the house fighter? Or are they going to give it to the random Brazilian? I don't know. It could go either way, but I think Tracy Cortez probably has a couple different paths here. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah. On top of that, she did the UFC a favor by taking that short notice fight to fill in for the main event. So it was good experience for her. I think, if she's taking it serious, she should be able to pull this one off.
That is how I see it as well, my man.
The one thing that would lead me kind of astray is because she has gotten kind of famous from this. So she kind of seems like the kind of fighter who is, a bit vain, and she pushes her looks and culture, stuff like that. She could totally get pulled into like the Instagram model direction, and I would not be surprised at all.
Yeah, Vivi is here for keeps, right? Like she's
exactly.
Probably not have a backup plan on Instagram, but I definitely hear where you're coming from there as well. It's an interesting fight. I will say Tracy does have a bad taste in her mouth after that last fight, so I wouldn't be surprised if she came in motivated here. But long term, I'm looking where you're looking, because I don't think she's got a title future per se. I just think that she's proven she's around this level. That Jasmine win is very quality, so that's what I'm taking with me here.
Dude, I know I don't think Cortez would ever do it, but the one guy says, does she go full Kay Hansen? Dude, she would make so much money on OnlyFans. It's disgusting. Like, she would be a millionaire easily.
I mean, dude, she's got 1.2 million followers to leverage there. So Kay Hansen was probably doing that with like 75,000. And I'm just guessing,
exactly.
Right? No disrespect, but oh man, I think that this is one of the most compelling fights on the card, brother. We've got a prelim matchup here. It's the Hurricane, Hyder Emil. Last time out, guys, y'all wanted to give me shit because I said Hyder Emil split decision. As it was written at Roto Grinders, baby. Right down to the fucking method, okay? Hyder Emil, for me, is a guy that goes out there and fights hard for your dollar. And a lot of times, like, there's MMA fighters that you don't know if they're going to do that. I'll just tell you the truth, guys. I think Conor Matthews is probably a nice guy. You probably shake hands and, hey, how are you? I'm sure he's a nice guy. But I don't know he's going to fight hard for my dollar for 15 minutes. I'm just going to leave it there, right? Hyder Emil, you going to fight hard for your dollar for 15 minutes or until he wins or until he's finished. That's it. So I know that this guy plays for keeps. I like that in a fighter. He's 35. There ain't no time to get better. It's right now. I feel like he is a finished product in the UFC. And does that have a ceiling? Yeah, I think he's definitely going to run into a ceiling at some point. It could be this one. The things that go the way of Delgado, he's the younger man, he's the bigger man. So he's got all the anthropomorphic advantages on paper in this contest. But here's the things I don't like about Delgado, because I remember before his Contender Series fight, I wrote down, this guy is a defensive void. He's got good offense. He's got good knees, got pretty good long striking tools. But at the end of the day, he doesn't defend anything. Right? He kind of just comes forward attempting offense and, let's see how it goes. Chris Makate dominated him. Not a competitive fight at all. Chris Makate showed him levels in the wrestling. So do I expect that from Hyder Emil? Not necessarily. But does it tell me Delgado is like this world-class wrestler or something? He's going to take Hyder Emil down over and over. I don't really see that, honestly. So I think probably going to be doing this on the feet for the most part. Hyder Emil is not really one of these guys that kind of just stands back and lets you use your length and your range. William Gomis loves that kind of fight, right? Let's have a little outside kickboxing match where I outland you by 6 strikes. That's kind of what he does. And Hyder Emil was like, no, fuck you. We're fighting. Get in his face, head down, head in the chest, throw to the body, throw upstairs. He's trying to target the fact that you're a long, big body by hitting you at all levels. And I feel like when I look at these two guys, the thing that sketches me out, a lot of people are picking Hyder Emil, right? He's certainly a more known quantity among MMA fans now. He's got 3 wins in the UFC. Delgado, 1 win in the UFC over a guy who's not very credentialed. But then you look and it's like, where's the body of work for Delgado that tells me he's that good? Again, he loses to Makate. It wasn't a close fight, right? He has a decent fight with Ernie Juarez. Who are you? No disrespect, right? Just guys that aren't at this level yet, proven themselves at this level yet. On the other side, Hyder Emil, let's go back and look at the guys he's fighting in the UFC, guys. William Gomis, okay? 4-1 in the UFC for William Gomis. Jiang Yeong Lee, 2-2 in the UFC, 500 fighter. Fernie Garcia, no good. But the one thing that is a selling point there? Nobody else finished Fernie Garcia. Couldn't get him out of there. Broke him. Just came forward, beat him down, broke him. So now he's got 2 finishes with strikes in the UFC, right? The Jiang Lee fight was like, hey, I stand here, you stand here. Let's see which one of us falls. They fought like gangsters. But again, I know that Hyder Emil has good durability because I've seen him stand in the pocket, take flush punches to the chin with Jiang Yeong Lee and no-sell them and then knock him the fuck out. And then I've seen on the other side him go against William Gomis, a guy who's been a proven weasel, difficult guy to get one over on. And he goes out there, finds a way to weasel him, get a scorecard off him. So what tells me that Delgado should be like a favorite here? I don't know. I guess that he's the bigger guy. He's a little bit younger. That's all that I'm really getting because honestly, I just feel like Hyder Emil pushes a heavy pace. I don't see a massive skill advantage one way or the other. So, yeah, that's the way I see it, man. What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting matchmaking, to be honest, because you would think that Hyder Emil would be getting a better fight after, being 3-0 in the UFC, considering he just beat William Gomis, who I would assume is ranked higher than Jose Delgado. So I don't really know why they matched him down, but who cares? I think this is a pretty even fight. This is a hard fight for me to call, honestly. So some things about Hyder is, he's super tough and he seems like he's dangerous, but he doesn't really have a ton of finishes. When he strikes, a lot of times, he puts up good volume, but he doesn't really plant his feet very much when he throws. He kind of bum rushes forward and then, he'll swing at you and then clinch up with you. Both guys have gotten dropped before in the past. Both guys have had their backs taken and, both guys have decision, submission, and KO wins on their record and have never been finished. I think this fight is probably going the distance. I'm surprised it's plus money. These guys are both super durable, very tough. If they get dropped, they're not going to fold up shop. They're going to push through it. They're going to fight through it. I think Delgado is probably going to be fighting off the back foot, striking off the back foot. Emil's going to march forward. Emil's so hittable, though, that, like, I kind of think that Delgado can just, be able to land the clean head strikes. And, Emil has been fighting in the Apex the past 3 fights. This is now in the big octagon, which will give Delgado more space to move around. And I also think takedowns are potentially going to be a potential game changer for whoever is able to be the better grappler. We did see that Fernie had Emil's back, which wasn't a great look. Fernie, a 135er. Delgado, I do think that Delgado's definitely not a finished product, where I think Hyder Emil probably is a finished product, but Hyder has shown us more to demonstrate his skill set right now than Delgado has, in my opinion. Mikate completely rinsed him 30-27. Does Hyder Emil have the wrestling and grappling of Chris Mikate? No. But Hyder is, like you said, Hyder is super tough. He's solid, man. He's very well-rounded. He seems to be improving a bit, even though he's 35. So I think it's going to be a very close fight. I think it's going to be back and forth. So I personally only like overs in this fight. I wouldn't get to a money line.
Very interesting, my man. I actually wrote in my article prediction here, either fighter via stoppage or Hyder Emil via split decision. Because, I see a lot of chaos here. I see a lot of car crashes here. That's the only thing that scares me about, a GTD. I agree with you that both these guys are tough as shit. I just think, they're probably going to be colliding a lot of times in this kind of fight. Hyder comes forward, Delgado tries to intercept guys when they come in. That just feels to me like somebody's going to be getting their offense off. But, it's not easy to put away Hyder. The things that I want to note here before we move off this fight, both guys come from a solid gym. I think Hyder Emil is probably the number one focus for the El Nino Training Center, right? Gilbert Melendez and crew. We've got lightweight champions in both corners here, guys. We got Gilbert Melendez's protege, Hyder Emil, who's been built up from the beginning to be his guy. And then you've got Jose Delgado. In all of his fights, you see Benson Henderson in the corner. You see the guys out of the lab in Arizona, very skilled gym. So I just think it's a really good fight. I'm not saying Delgado's not a good fighter. I'm saying I know that Hyder Emil is a good fighter. I've seen it. Not to say he's a great fighter, but Jose Delgado for me is a good prospect, a guy that has a lot of the right key pieces, but hasn't proven it to us at this level. So for me, dog or pass type of situation, but probably a pass, because Hyder has been running hot. We've been picking him to win these fights, but at the end of the day, he does have a volatile style. If he's doing the Jiang Yeong Lee dance with Delgado, he's probably eating a knee to the head. So I don't like that for him here. But for me, I just think this is an honest fight. So I'd make it closely lined. And I don't think there's a huge advantage either way, except that Delgado young, maybe he could take a couple more shots because of that. In theory, yet bigger guy. But I just think Hyder has shown he knows what his limitations are, and he knows how he wins fights in the UFC, which is come forward, be aggressive, put hands on people, and look to gas them out. And I think Delgado probably has a good pace, but when you're a defensive void, there's just opportunities to get hit, and I see a lot of opportunities. So next up, my brother, we got a fight where me and you gave a little bit of a pre-show breakdown to each other about this fight. And, you mentioned early on in our broadcast, when you talk about fights out loud, sometimes it starts to open up ideas. I definitely think this is a fight where the more I've talked about it, the more I could see a path for Jack Hermansson. I look at Jack and I don't like when he's got to fight guys with big muscles. I think back to the Thiago Santos fight, the Jerry Cannonier fight. You could see he's apprehensive about dealing with those kind of guys. But that win over Pfeiffer, solid win. You've got two guys on opposite ends of the coin, right? A more than a year layoff for Jack Hermansson, not seen since last February. Gregory Rodriguez, ass whooped in February, coming right back for this one. So, man, interesting fight situationally, contextually, and also stylistically. How do you see this one going down between two middleweights with a great grappling pedigree?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, every fighter has a price, so at some point, Hermansson will will become value. What will that price be? That's where we determine like where we think it should be. I think probably there's going to be some Hermanson money at like plus 220. The issue that I have with Hermanson is I think he's going to have a hard time early against Rodriguez. First round, Gregory Rodriguez is super dangerous. He's got a ton of power, got a lot of speed, and we've seen Hermanson hurt multiple fights, especially in round one. He got dropped by Vettori. Who's Vettori dropping? No one. So it's
that might be his only one in the UFC.
Yeah, and then he has a couple KO1 losses. So the KO one is available for Rodriguez. The thing is, what happens if he does not get the knockout? Because Rodriguez is coming off an absolute shellacking in his last fight against Cannonier. And, he kind of chased the finish in that fight in round one. Credit to Cannonier for 41 years old, withstanding that beating and pushing through and showing the durability and heart to go on to finish Robo in that fight. It was super impressive. So the thing is, like, will the beating that he just took 4 months ago outweigh the 2-year layoff from a 37-year-old coming off shoulder surgery? These are questions that we can't really answer. They're unquantifiable. So I think there's a bit of guesswork with how you think that's going to affect the fight. And so personally, I don't really want anything to do with this fight. I get why Rodriguez is a favorite. He's got the power. What does a Hermanson win look like? The big cage will help Jack. He's all about his footwork and countering and jab and, touch and move. I think it was a lot easier for him to get that kind of game off against, a more one-dimensional striker in Chris Curtis, whereas Rodriguez going forward on him, and it's going to be a little more difficult for him to pull that kind of style off. But we talked a little bit about this before the show. What an interesting element to the fight is how the grappling could potentially look in rounds 2 or 3. I think Hermanson's going to have a really tough time taking Rodriguez down in round 1, getting him down. But we know Hermanson is known for his ground and pound. He's got vicious ground and pound, pretty solid grappler himself. Takedowns and wrestling, not the best, but once he gets you down, that's his realm. And Rodriguez in the UFC, we haven't seen him get grappled. Cannonier took him down. He worked his way to his feet right away. I went through his record. He hasn't really had to face any grapplers in the UFC, so we don't really know how good he really is off bottom in an extended fight that maybe he's already thrown 60 strikes. Those are questions that I don't have the answer to. You have to go all the way back to 2019 to see him off of his back in an LFA fight, and it wasn't a good look. Has he improved since then? Definitely, leaps and bounds. So I don't really know how that would look if Hermanson gets him down mid-round 2. Is he getting back up? I don't know. I don't think anyone would be able to tell you that. So yeah, I'm passing on this fight. It's kind of volatile with everything that I explained.
I agree with you, man. When I think about it, like it's just hard for me to get to Hermanson pre, because I could see a world in which he just gets snuffed out in the first round. Like the way that Rodriguez comes out, he's normally quite aggressive, getting into the pocket, looking for shots on the feet. And he also can wear on guys over the course of 15 minutes. You look back at Brad Tavares, a guy who's gone to close decisions, with many fighters in the UFC. And RoboCop kind of just walked him down with impunity and beat him up in that fight. So I think that when I look at this matchup, I do see elements of a Chris Curtis game plan, like being there for Jack. Like if he's able to just skirt around the outside, make this guy chase after him all night. RoboCop is a little bit, heavy-footed, right? Like he wants to set his feet and kind of throw with you. And, guys have made him pay for that. Like Bruno Hulk Ferreira kind of like caught him in the pocket. Like, oh, you want to stay here? Okay, let's find out. And I don't see Jack as having that kind of power. But what he does have is the ability to move his feet. So that's probably what Jack is going to do a lot of in this fight is like try and move your feet, try not to get hit by this guy. And then, when you have moments, when you have opportunities, try and take advantage. somebody had said, I think it was Dixon said, don't even say it. The Voldemort RoboCop sub, it should not be named. I'll tell you, man, I actually think Jack Hermanson is more likely to win this fight by submission than RoboCop, despite the gap in credentials. And it's just because what do we know about Jack Hermanson? Number one, he nearly submitted Jacare Souza. I'm old enough to remember that. I know some folks have forgotten. He has 3 submission wins in the UFC. That's actually more submissions than RoboCop has attempted in a 10-fight UFC career. So for me, it's just like you have to give some credit to Jack Hermanson. Here's the other thing. I get it. Like you submit Kelvin Gastelum, like how much credit do we want to give you? Okay. But like you submit Gerald Mearshart. Rene de Ritter is the only other fucking guy to do that in the UFC. Let's put some goddamn respect on Jack the Joker. In addition to that, you look at, okay, who else did he submit? David Branch, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He did that in less than 1 minute. It's like this guy, Jack Hermanson, has 3 first-round submissions in the UFC, and they're mostly against good quality wrestlers and grapplers. It's like, he deserves respect for that. And also Jacare had to give him a lot of respect for that seated katakatami, that Joker team that he likes to do. He went to one John Danaher seminar and learned how to submit black belts with this move. You understand? So I think that when I look at Jack, I know that he has the abilities to, win this fight if he can get top position or if he can get into submission exchanges. I don't know what percentage that is, right? Like, I just feel Jack is this kind of guy that at 37 years of age, with a very long layoff, he's not a guy that has a super consistent, like wrestle heavy game plan, right? It's more often he's kind of on that back foot and uses it defensively. Guys try and clinch him, he like throws them and stuff like that. And I just don't really see RoboCop doing that. So my article prediction here, RoboCop KO or decision, but I did have to go in parentheses there, or Jack by sub. And it's just because I think people are not going to believe like Jack Hermanson could go jiu-jitsu for jiu-jitsu with Gregory. But I haven't seen anything from Gregory in the UFC that proves otherwise. I've seen Gregory go for submissions on Armin Petrosian where he fell over the top and looked like a fool. And I saw Rodolfo Vieira go out there and say step 1, step 2, step 3, and it's over, right? It was levels in the jiu-jitsu, right? You see what a master of sport does. And then what a guy who's a Brazilian national champion of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, he's not a world champion on those levels. Like, I just think that it's a little bit different, right? In terms of class and quality. So for me, that's the dynamic of the fight. Anything you want to add there?
No, I think you might be one of the only people picking the Hermanson sub. So I like that angle. I think that's super sneaky. The numbers are huge on
up to 20-1, which I might have to. I don't know. I'll have to think that one over. But yeah, I'm seeing the sub at 20-1. Like, am I saying that it's the most likely outcome? No, I'm not. But am I saying that I think that it's probably a lot of Jack's win equity? Like, I think it's certainly like at least a third of his win equity. So I just put it that way. All right, man. Whoo! This is the people's main event. Peyton Talbot goes from being the biggest favorite on the fight card when he's taking on Raoni Barcelos, a 38-year-old, highly skilled, well-rounded fighter. And now he is an underdog taking on Felipe Lima, a completely different fighter than Raoni Barcelos in the sense that he's a young prospect like Peyton Talbot, right? So it's a completely different matchup in that regard. It does have some similar stylistic elements, though. I think Felipe Lima is a potent grappler. We saw that against Muhammad Naimov, and I had seen that regionally. I actually bet him by sub 13-1 against Muhammad Naimov because I thought pace and opportunism are things that Felipe Lima tends to do very well. On the other side, this is his most difficult striking challenge to date, I would say, in Peyton Talbot. So fascinating fight, great matchmaking here, and no easy landings for Peyton Talbot as far as I'm concerned, man. This is another tough fight after a tough fight last time. What do you think?
Yeah, this is a fight that I've kind of gone back and forth on, trying to picture how it plays out. And, I landed on, I think Talbot is the side at this plus money. I think there's a potential that he pulls this off for sure. So, I definitely don't hate. I know he got audited and it was a horrible look, but if you look at the macro side of things, like that experience could be, the best thing that could have happened to him as far as, how he redeems himself going forward. And I know Barcelos was able to thoroughly out-wrestle him, but the thing is, he kind of had to he had to be kind of creative with the the different kind of wrestling attacks that he used. Historically, Talbot has okay get-ups. Like, I know he got stuck against Aguirre in round 1, but the difference between Lima and Barcelos is there's a few differences. Barcelos obviously older, so you look at Lima, you're like, oh, this is a younger version. But the thing is, he doesn't have the jiu-jitsu that Barcelos has, so I don't really know how much control he's going to actually have in this fight. I think that there are going to be a lot more opportunities for Talbot to work his way back to the feet. Will he get taken down? I strongly believe so. But I do think, after combing through more tape, I think that Talbot is going to be able to work back to his feet and land like the more eye-catching shots. Lima is a good prospect for sure. He's very well-rounded. It's not an easy fight by any means. Lima is decent on the feet too. I think he's going to have success on the feet for sure. But I think Talbot is gonna land the more eye-catching shots on the feet. And if he gets taken down, I think he can work his way back up. And Lima gets a takedown, Talbot works his way back up, and then lands a couple big shots on the feet, kind of steals the round kind of thing. Ultimately, I think it's a close fight, though. It has split decision written all over it for me.
The more I look into this fight, the trickier it gets in some ways, because I agree with you about a lot of what you said. Number one, we saw treetops from Raoni Barcelos. If you guys haven't wrestled before, what I mean by that is you can either grab a single leg and kind of keep it by your hip and look to work to attack the other leg or try and knock them off balance, things like that. That's a way you could get a lower single leg, or you could try and treetop it, meaning bring it up as high as possible, because at a certain point, somebody's flexibility will be tested, right? Either they can do a full split or you lift them off the ground. And that's what a treetop looks like. So he treetop Peyton Talbot. He shot, low ankles to the opposite side. He kind of did a lot of different things to out wrestle him in that fight. I will agree with you. But also, I would say that Raoni needed to preserve his cardio. There was a few times in there where I thought he honestly could have first of all, he had 3 submission attempts in the first round. I don't know how many he was credited with by my count watching. And I kind of feel like he was half-assing all of them because he didn't want to gas himself out, right? His number one fear is if I squeeze on this dude, then I'm going to be out of gas. And I truly believe Raoni was gassed at the 8-minute mark. And dude, if you look at the end of round 2, he gets up and he looks like he is drunk walking back to his corner, man. He is so tired that he's 38, Again, it was a beautiful win. It was such a masterful performance, beautiful martial arts from Raoni Barcelos. Nothing you could take away. But I think the difference between him and Lima is the speed. When you watch a guy like Barcelos, he knows the next right thing to do in every position because he's very, very technical. So he just did the next right thing. And Peyton Talbot was always 1-2 steps behind him, right? It's I grab here, and then he's trying to do the next right thing, and he's always playing 1 step behind. And for me, I think that these guys have a different level of coaching. And again, I will be happy to be proved wrong. I think Peyton Talbot is a very skilled fighter. I just didn't think they did him a favor with this matchup because Peyton Talbot is trained by the Reno Academy of Combat or whatever like this. Guys, no disrespect. I was not impressed by his corner at all. His corner was giving him bad advice in between rounds. His corner actually said, and this is a quote, "You're down 2 rounds. You need to go win this one." Brother, that's a 29-28 loss. Why are you even here? So again, it's hard to coach. I am a coach in wrestling. I understand sometimes you say things that you live to regret in the corner and you're like, why did I even say that? But when you look at that cornering, for me, bro, it left a lot to be desired. And it showed why he didn't know what to do in those positions, right? They're not telling him the right answers. They're not setting him up for success. My father used to use a phrase all the time. Set somebody up for success. Don't set him up for failure. And I felt like he was set up for failure now because he did not know, he was not coached the right things to do in each situation. Felipe Lima, on the other hand, I thought Andreas Michael was a fucking masterful corner. You watch how he's doing against Nemov. And Michael is telling him, no, believe in your stuff. Throw more. I don't care. I believe in your cardio. You need to believe in your cardio. Let it go right now. He's basically telling him everything he needs to hear. And then before round 3, he says, hey, listen, this is not about, winning and losing. He's tired. I need you to go out there and do this for your mother. I need you to, he gets on him emotionally. And what do you see from Felipe Lima? He comes out in round 3, beats the guy up on the feet, takes him down, takes his back, and finishes the fight. Leaves no doubt. And for me, that's because he has a great coach. He had a great coach that told him the assignment. This kid's ready to break. Get him out of here. Send him home. I think that with a guy like Peyton Talbot, you have to know going in, this kid has electric cardio. This kid is a dynamic striker on the feet. You don't want to fuck with him there. I think Andreas Michael is going to say, hey, listen, you seen your buddy Khamzat? That's how we're fighting this fight. Fucking go out there, sprint to his hips, take him down, take his back, and finish him. Let's not fuck around in this fight. And I honestly think he's got a chance to do it. So for me, I think Felipe Lima is a guy who, if this fight gets long, if this fight gets extended, it's going to be a little bit more tricky, right? We're probably looking at a close decision because to your point, Talbot will get up to his feet and start going, right? He starts throwing. But for me, the problem with his style right now, and maybe he can make these adjustments one fight camp to another, right? He stands way too upright. Like Raoni Barcelos was getting takedowns when he would get back up to his feet and like whatever, because he's standing all the way up here. And so Raoni's like, I'll just go back down low again. And then, dude, there was one time in the 3rd round where he shoots a takedown, bro, and Peyton fucking flat backed himself. It was disgusting. And so for me, those are or maybe it was round 2. I can't remember. But like basically, dude, it was like there's a time when you can see, and I see this as a wrestler, right? There's guys that will resist every takedown 100%. They'll never give you one for free. And there's other guys that they start getting a little tired or they start getting taken down a couple times and they get easier. Not harder. They get easier. And, bro, that's what it looked like to me. Like, Peyton Talbot at the beginning, to your point, standing up on one foot, bouncing back to the cage, like everything dialed in. And the fight got longer, and I did not like the decisions he was making. I did not like the fact it was getting easier. So all of that is to say, I think this is a great fight. I think these are 2 great fighters. I initially thought, like, maybe I'll lay some chalk here on Lima. Then I just came around to my senses. I was like, you don't want to fade big guys. You don't want to fade, especially guys as talented as Talbot at chalk prices. So for me, I'm not getting to a play here, but if I was looking for an angle, it would be the Lima sub because I just think it's like a glaring path to victory until it's addressed, right? Like Nick Aguirre, to your point, had dangerous positions on Talbot for a while, and then he gassed out. And I'm pretty sure he was a blue belt on like 2 weeks' notice. So it's like when I look at all these signs, it says to me, Talbot has done a great job not letting guys like consolidate positions and dominate him physically throughout his career because he's a freak athlete. But now he's got another prospect who's a good athlete and he's really well coached. It just seems to me like a hard assignment. Like if I'm the manager of Peyton Talbot, I'm getting an easier fight than this for the bounce back from Raoni. You know what I mean? And Peyton in his own interviews, I listened to them. He said, I want tough fights. I'm not afraid of tough fights. I'm ready to get back in there and test myself again. Fucking hats off. What more could you ask for in a competitor? But this is not an easy fight. And I just think that, if I'm managing a guy's career, when your confidence gets 30-26 out of you in front of an entire arena, maybe we get him back with an easy KO1 as opposed to right back into the deep end. And when I look at guys, if Felipe Lima was an underdog in this spot, he's the younger guy, he's a similar age. He's got way more experience, right? He's had 15 fights. So I just like a lot of the things, the elements of Lima's game. I think he's well-rounded. I think he's got good skills. I think he's really well coached. I think he just puts a lot of things together well. The output's the only concern for me, man. I don't think he's landed like more than 60 strikes in a UFC fight so far, and Peyton Talbot can do 100 in a round. So for me, if this is a striking fight, Talbot's the guy. I think that if this is a mixed martial arts bout, like I expect Lima and his coaching staff will bring to the table, then I think Lima gets the job done here in a close one. Yeah. Or he subs him.
I wouldn't be surprised if he submitted him really at all. The thing, like when in his last fight against Miles Johns, I know Miles Johns is a very good defensive wrestler, but when you saw like in round 2, when he got Miles Johns down, Johns was just able to use some athleticism to get back up. And I don't really know how good his cardio is going in round 2 or 3. So I think, I don't know. I think it couldn't, like you said, if this gets extended, I think it's going to be a close fight. But I wouldn't be shocked if he got rinsed either, too.
That's what's so confusing, man. It's like, I think when I just look at it and try and boil it down, I think Talbot has a ton of potential. I just don't think he's there yet, right? And like that could change with this performance. I'll be like, wow, open my eyes. But what I've seen is a guy who's got all the potential. And then when he had a huge opportunity, he flubbed it, but not flubbed it in a way where it was like, hey, 29, 28, not Urseg Pantoja. If I had zigged when I should have zagged, I win the fight. It's like, I had nothing for this guy. and he audited me throughout the contest. And so hopefully next time I'll have better. And it's like hard to bridge that gap for me in a short period of time. So let's see how it goes. I just think Lima is a little bit more well-prepared right now. And Talbot, UFC guy, he's going to be around, right? I think that they really like the kid. They want to strap a rocket to his back, but I don't think that this was the matchup for him. So let's see. Oh boy, we got a matchup here, my man, where I don't know how to make heads or tails of this. Another fight where layoffs are something that you got to talk about, right? I said Jack Hermanson, a layoff of over a year, more than 500 days, longest layoff on the card. Beneil Dariush, right? He was supposed to fight Moicano. Moicano gets the promotion, right? He gets to go up and fight the champ. Didn't go his way, but he at least was staying active, staying, in the octagon. And meanwhile, Benny just got sidelined there, got a little bit of money in his coin purse and told to go fuck off. So now he's back. He gets the same fight. And it's a weird fight. Two guys that are both in their mid-30s, two guys that are both very high-level grapplers, two guys that are both better offensive strikers than defensive strikers, take them clean on the chin sometimes. And their durability, I would say, in both cases is waning over the course of their career. So I don't know exactly what to do here except say Moicano, I think, is in slightly better form. Dariush has looked bad and old his last few fights, but the level of competition also will do that to you, right? When Moicano stepped up to a championship level fight, it didn't go well for him, right? He got smoked out of there and was made to look like he was a level below. So for me, it feels like a competitive fight where Benny at his best, like the best version of Benny, should be good enough to beat Moicano. I just don't think we've gotten the best version of Benny for quite some time. So I don't know exactly what to make of this. How about you? You got stronger thoughts?
No, I don't have stronger thoughts on this one. I think there's a lot of factors in this one that are difficult to really put into the handicap, like how washed Dariush is. 2 fights in a row where his chin looked completely gone. He looked like a shell of himself, but he was fighting Armin and Charles Oliveira. But at the same time, like, yes, he's fighting them, but he is getting finished super easily. And so
Neto BJJ offered more resistance against Armin,
Yeah, exactly. So, but the thing is, Moicano doesn't really have a ton of power on the feet at all. So I think Dariush definitely has multiple paths to victory in this fight. Like, I think Moicano is kind of running hot on his little run that he went on, with the Turner fight. That's not aging well. The Dober win, that's not aging well. So I think his run to the top was, I'm not going to take anything away from the Benoit Saint Denis. That was a great performance. But if you're not top timing, I just feel like he has a hard time winning fights at this kind of level if he's not, being able to get a top time clinic or,
the only analog I could think of is the Calvin Kattar fight at 145. If you're looking for a striking performance from Moicano.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Dariush is the better grappler here. So yeah, it's for me it would be Benny or pass.
Yeah, I see Fireside saying if RDA can hold you down, so can Dariush. The thing is, I bet 7.5 units on RDA that night. I think it was like minus 160 or something. Moicano was drinking beers on a boat in Brazil 5 days before the fight, and they called him, hey, man, can you make it? He spent basically 2 days traveling to the event, could not make the weight, which he told them, so they moved it up to 165-pound catch weight. And I truly believe RDA was just like merciful out there, like knew that this guy was totally unprepared, beat his ass for like 4 rounds, and then kind of just took his foot off the gas in the 5th because the ref wasn't going to save Moicano and Moicano wasn't going to save himself. So it was one of those weird fights where like RDA kind of like let the foot off the gas because he beat his ass so bad. But I will just note, like, RDA is a 170 pounder for a lot of the most recent relevant run in his career. And he hung at 170 just fine. So that is a little bit of a size difference, I think. Like, I would say RDA is a little bit more proven against big guys than Benny is, but they're both very good grapplers. I don't know that there's going to be a ton of grappling in this fight. I think Moicano, he's got the length to be opportunistic if it's on the feet, right? We kind of saw Gamrot tried to wrestle into Beneil, and Beneil's a really awkward guy to wrestle. He'll fucking roll to Granby's and do all this crazy shit. His jiu-jitsu is fucking fire. But then you look and one guy's been submitted and one guy hasn't, right? And Beneil Dariush got submitted by Michael Chiesa, who frankly isn't on his level in the grappling, right? Like, but he's a long guy and he took his back, and fuck, if it's a rear naked choke wrapped around your neck, you might just end up tapping. And I do think that Moicano, I think, is a little more opportunistic with those subs. So that's why this fight is a fucking pass for me, man. Like, I think that if I was getting plus money on Beneil, it would more tempt me towards that side. But I just think there's enough unknowns that I'm more than happy to pass in this one. Liam, fun fact, Moicano literally doesn't have a sub attempt in a UFC fight since 2022. He also submitted Damir Hadzovic in like fucking 25 seconds, though. So I would not sleep on our guy, Renato Moicano. And the other thing is, bro, he's fighting who? Like, he's fighting BSD and these other, like, a lot of those guys. Islam Makhachev, you're going to fucking try and submit him? Like,
well,
it's difficult to sub those guys. Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. And that fight, honestly, Drew Dober kind of fucked himself by flat backing in the third round, going for a takedown of his own. But for me, like, Benny at his best is the click. But are you getting Benny at his best? Like, that's your speculation to have, and I'd rather not. And somebody said in the chat, why did you submit me if you wanted to fight more? That is my favorite moment in UFC history. So, guys, please go back and revisit if you haven't seen it. Renato Moicano, stand-up comedian after fighting. Just wait for it. All right, guys, next up. We got Brandon Royval taking on Joshua Van. What a fucking fight, man. I think that this top five, like, in terms of exciting matchups, that Benny fight, take it or leave it, right? It's a rebooked fight. Those always kind of lose some they lose some luster, so to speak. This fight, man, like, it's electric, right? I don't know how this could be a boring fight. Brandon Royval, first team all excitement in the flyweight division. The guy goes out there swinging elbows, swinging punches, attempting offense all the time. Great jiu-jitsu, dangerous striking. There to be hit sometimes, takes a lot of risks. I just feel like he's an extremely fun fighter. You got to love a guy like Raw Dog and how he fights, what he brings to the table. I got to say, fucking hats off to the guy, okay? I picked Tatsuro Taira to beat him. I don't lay chalk very often. I laid chalk with Tatsuro Taira, as I have many, many times before. Hats off to Brandon Royval, the best, hold your horses performance in the UFC that I can remember recently, right? Where Tatsuro Taira didn't look like a guy who's out of place. He just looked like he was a guy who was a step behind a really good fighter. And I think of Josh Van as a guy that is not proven on the ground in the UFC. That is where his biggest liability is, in my humble opinion. We've seen him submitted regionally. A lot of guys have tried to take him down. He's difficult to take down. The thing is, though, I think if somebody gets his back or if somebody gets him into a grappling transition, they could have some success. When you look at Brandon Royval, he doesn't really proactively grapple very often. He's much more of a reactive grappler. Like, you start wrestling into me, hold this guillotine. That's kind of the way he does it, right? He'll start going for shit off of his back. A lot of his subs in the UFC are off of his back. So whether that's like him pulling into the guillotine or whether that's him throwing shit up from the bottom, he is a wild attacker, but he's a lot of guard shit and a lot of playing off your back. Not a great wrestler proactively. Even Tyra was able to get to some great positions on Royval, but Royval was able to stay defensively sound and not give up too bad of a position where he couldn't recover. So I think that the better grappler, I saw some people saying like it's a 50-50 on the grappling or what. That's fucking retarded as far as I'm concerned. Excuse my language. But just like when you think about how these two guys match up, Royval is a proven BJJ black belt that's gone with high level guys, right? Like the highest level guys, Pantoja, whoever. Then you look at Joshua Van. He's not proven any of that against those level of guys ever. And he has been submitted by a guy that they run it back today. Josh Van stomps that guy badly. But he did get submitted, and it's on the record. And by the way, it's not that long ago. The guy's career has been condensed into an extremely short window. So when I look at how this plays out, like if the fight goes 15 in a decision-only market, I would find it hard to back Brandon Royval because, like, I think he's going to get outworked on the strike count here. I think that Josh Van is the more proven power threat of the two, though both men have some power. And I think that Josh, if he's able to keep the fight upright, he's probably going to run away with the strike count. So for those reasons, like it just feels to me like Van is a pretty heavy favorite in the decision-only type of environment here because Royval would need like back take to no submission finish for me to get like clear, easy, bankable type of rounds. I think anything else, it's going to be nip tuck at best for him. Whereas I think Van could hurt him on the feet or could run away with it on volume as he's done before. He has 3 knockdowns in that last fight against Bruno Silva. That's as many knockdowns as Brandon Royval has in his UFC career, right? So I just want to put that into perspective. Then when I look at, okay, where is the downside for Van? We've seen him hurt by Charles Johnson, who in my opinion is not quite as proven a flyweight as Brandon Royval, though they're both very good. And then on the other side, it's like, okay, Joshua Van, we saw him submitted before. So I think if this is an ITD only market, now we're looking much more towards where these lines actually are at, right? For me, this is a fight where I believe in Van. Like, I just think that Van has a long-term high ceiling. I think he's getting better between each fight. I just don't like the price, man. Like, I can't believe you got to lay the chalk with Van here. So just feels to me like a fight where I'm going to pick Van to win, but I'm probably going to have to pass on this one because I don't think the price is worth getting behind. Like, I don't think I have an edge on this. I think it is a close fight, and I think Van wins it by decision. But could I rule out him getting knocked out? Could I rule out him getting subbed? No, I can't. So for me, it's a pass where I'm picking Joshua Van to get the biggest win of his career and potentially fight for the title later this year. But it's a big ask against Brandon Royval. What do you think?
Yeah, I mostly agree with everything that you said. I'm also gonna predict Van to win, but it's definitely a risky click at minus 120. The thing, like, there's multiple things that I've seen on tape where Van could potentially get himself into some trouble against Royval. And I've kind of been a Royval doubter. I did not think he was going to be as good as he is, but I have to tip my hat to him. Like, he's definitely improved. You know, like, guys who get hurt, like, rocked every fight and, you know, somehow able to fight through it and end up winning, I tend to underrate them. You know, Charles Oliveira is another guy. Even Pantoja a little bit. Like, I don't like these guys who are super hittable. So I tend to bet against them a lot, and it burns me when you find these fighters who are kind of outliers who are able to dig very deep on a consistent basis. But like, I think Van, you brought up the Charles Johnson fight where Johnson did end up getting the finish. I think Van dropped him in round one. And if you go through Royval's career, he's been dropped in a bunch of fights too, and somehow
a million times
he doesn't die. So that's the annoying thing. Like, but at some point, I keep saying this, and I've said it about Oliveira, and I say it about Pantoja. At some point, the chin is going to crack, but you kind of have to pump the brakes at flyweight. They don't really have that much power, but that's where I kind of think Van is different. I do think that he is one of the few people at flyweight that can actually get knockouts, and he teased people a lot with his past couple of fights, aside from the Bruno one, with these knockouts. So yeah, man, it's a really interesting fight. I'm going to side with Van, but I will say the Royval submission at plus 850 seems wrong. I would say that's probably, I would put it at like 400, maybe 450. So I was kind of surprised that it was such a big line on the submission. Yeah.
What is the submission price?
800.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of his win equity. Because, like, when you look at that Van and Johnson fight, like, honestly, I think that was a slightly premature stoppage. I'm not mad at it, right? Like, obviously, I understand it. He falls back, like, flat. But how many times have we seen somebody fall flat like that and then get, like, 8 more ground and pound shots before they call it off? Like, normally they kind of let you try and recover on the ground a little bit when you fall back like that. And when I look at Royval, he's an extremely opportunistic submission hunter. When guys are like looking to get a hold of him because they got hurt, he just goes for his series. He knows where he wants to be. His guillotine is money. So I think all those things are definitely worth considering from a prop standpoint. Like Royval, I think a lot of his win equity is tied up into that sub. And, I don't think it's he can't hurt him on the feet. I think he could hurt him on the feet, but he'd probably have to follow him with a sub attempt in order to get him out of there, because Van tough as an old leather boot. And on the Van side, man, I agree with you. I think he's live to win by knockout. Like, I think that the decision is how I see him doing it. Brandon is tough as fuck. Like, he's not going to quit on himself, but he gets hurt a lot. And when you're a big, long guy like that and you take a lot of risks, you're there to be hurt to the body. I think he's there to be hurt to the leg, which Van mostly will throw punches. So I don't know that that's like a huge concern in this matchup. But then on top of that, like, he could be hurt to the head. We've seen it multiple times. And I think that Josh Van, if there's one thing you know about a guy who's going to throw 100+ significant strikes, they're going to have opportunities to hurt somebody, right? You can't hurt somebody if you don't hit them. And so when you give yourself 150 opportunities or whatever it is in a fight like Josh Van does, it doesn't take a perfect shot. It doesn't take the hardest punch you have. It takes one that the guy didn't see when he was looking in the wrong direction, when he zigged when he should have zagged. If you put out a lot of offense, you have more opportunities to hurt somebody. So I just think Van does that as good as anybody.
Yeah, Charles Johnson was pumping out a ton of volume early in round one and was kind of throwing Van off a little bit, or it was taking a while for him to kind of get his read. But then once he like finally sat down on something that landed clean, he knocked him down. So it's like, dude, and Johnson has much better head strike defense than Brandon Royval. So I know people want to compare that fight, and I'm definitely comparing it a little bit, but you know, the big difference is Johnson has way better striking defense than Royval.
I agree with you. He's more fundamental in his fighting. You know, he's just hard to finish. He's hard to hurt. Charles Johnson, like he's a very sound fighter with skills in all positions. He's gotten outworked a couple of times. He's gotten neutralized in a couple grappling type affairs, but very difficult to just beat up a guy like Charles Johnson. Man, he's tough as fuck. And even you look at Azat Maxim, bro. Azat Maxim, I thought was worse because of how Charles made him look, bro. And like he actually went out there and fought really tough against Tagir. So that's off to the guy. Now we've made it. We're into the title fights, and I've done a lot of saying, you know, I kind of like this guy to win, but I don't really see it from a betting standpoint. And now I'm just going to go ahead and give you guys a pick. I bet Kai Kara-France at plus 225. And the reason being is because I look at a guy like Kai Kara-France as a skilled fighter with real attributes that could win him the title. And I don't think it's an easy fight, right? I think if you're fighting Pantoja, you're in a very difficult fight by definition, right? The guy 19-0 in fights that end inside the distance. He's fucking tough as an old leather boot. He's been hurt before. He doesn't quit on himself. So he's a tough son of a bitch, man. Like there's a lot of good things about him. But to your point, Pepe, chins go, right? Like they don't just last forever. And this guy gets hit cleanly in almost every fight. He's been dropped once in the UFC. I think that was by Davison Dice Tuguera Figueiredo. And when you look at Kai Kara-France, he's got insane power. You know, when you look at most flyweights, they don't have 8 knockdowns in their UFC career, period, you know? And when you look at what Kai Kara-France has done, he moves people with his hands. You know, he hurts people with his hands. And a lot of flyweights just don't do that, right? So I think Pantoja has made a career of like walk forward, put your chin on a platter and show these guys they can't hurt you. But I think Kai Kara-France, he doesn't fight like a lot of these other guys too. He throws a lot of uppercuts. He frames his shots. You know, somebody I'd kind of draw a parallel to, and again, very different fighters. Please try and listen to the specific comparison. Gene Silva frames his uppercuts. What do I mean by that? I mean, he holds your head in place and then meets his hand, right? Like he's holding you so he can come get it. He's framing off this way and meeting it up the middle. Does things to prevent your exits from uppercuts. Kai Kara-France put Rogerio Bontorin on a highlight reel by getting his back taken, escaping, turning around, framing off an uppercut, and sending the guy all the way south to Hades. So I think when you look at his career, he's made a career of surviving bad situations when he's put there and then making guys pay. You know, a lot of guys spend energy trying to submit him. Amir Albazi spent a lot of energy going for one, and then he falls over, and then he's getting beat up to end the round. It's like Kai Kara-France does a pretty good job hand fighting, staying disciplined, doing the right things. I saw him fight Askar Askarov live in person. Thought the fight could have went either way. But when you look at it, the guy does a great job defending when people are on his back. That's the guy that beat Pantoja, by the way. So when you go through and you start looking at their records, like, yes, he lost to Pantoja the first time they fought. He's had plenty of time to try and improve since then. I think both guys are much better than the first time they fought. He also knows, hey, my biggest liability on the feet is those body kicks, which Pantoja hit him with plenty of times. Moreno finished the job on that. I think that you're going to see Kai Kara-France come out with a little bit of a better game plan in terms of tucked elbows, keep it a little bit tight, right? And then he's going to try to land big shots that mean something. He's going to use his 80 some odd percent takedown defense to try and keep this fight on the feet. And I think he's got a path to win by knockout or decision. So I think that if this is a sub-only market, it's minus 1,000 for the champ. Like, he is way better on the ground. His jiu-jitsu is fucking phenomenal. His grappling, his back take sequence, a lot of what he does is beautiful. But Steve Erceg survived the back take, and this guy survived the back take. And it's like, you've seen a lot of guys have been able to make it through and not just give it up when he gets their back. So if I see Kai Kara-France, a guy who's fought him before, got some experience, got some of that down, he's really good at defending takedowns now, around 80 some odd percent, and he's going to try and keep this on the feet, punish him with big strikes, and he's got clear power in his hands. He's a little bigger guy. He's the younger guy by 3 years. There's just a couple different boxes that are all checking the Kai Kara-France side for me, and it reminds me of Jack Della Maddalena against Bilal Muhammad. Bilal Muhammad's a great fighter, right? But a lot of people didn't believe in him. And then all of a sudden they started to believe in him so much. And now he's 35 years of age in a tough fight and everybody believes in him. And I'm just like, this is a 35-year-old in a tough fight. Everybody believes in him. And I'm willing to find out if this oceanic fighter with good takedown defense and some big shots on the feet, when the number one criteria that they're trying to rewrite the entire rules of the sport to make it more clear is damage, give me the guy who's throwing big damaging shots from minute one and who's got more knockdowns and fewer fights. Give me Kai Kara-France. I think it's going to be a close one. I don't hate anybody taking Pantoja by sub. I think that's a large part of his win equity here. But for me, if this is a KO, if this is a decision, I think it's anybody's ball game, and you're getting plus 2XX. So let's find out. What do you think, brother? Mike, am I out to lunch?
No, definitely not. I've done a lot of thinking on this fight because there's a ton of factors that go into it. And I've kind of been having a trouble like figuring out how it's actually going to play out. And, you know, if you match these guys up 10 times, you might get a couple different outcomes, right? So it's impossible to actually always predict with precision what's going to happen when they fight this one time. But some of the factors that I was thinking about regarding this fight, like, so, you know, you look at Kai Kara-France and, you know, I was initially thinking like, okay, like Pantoja's hittable. He's getting up there in age. He's 35. You know, his chin is going to be cracked at some point. Now we got a guy in Kai Kara-France who's got great takedown defense, can do some cracking on the feet, whereas Steve Erceg and Asakura have weak takedown defense and were able to be taken down easily. Now Kai Kara-France will be able to fill in the holes that, you know, they were not able to do. But when you think about it, Kai Kara-France, what fight has he fit? What like very, very difficult fight has Kai Kara-France gone through? Like, what war has he gone through and came out on the other side? None. Pantoja.
Raulian Paiva.
Yeah, Raulian Paiva. Pantoja, on the other hand, he has a ton of experience digging deep. He's way more like he's never been finished. Kai Kara-France, he's been finished 6 different times. Another thing, Kai Kara-France only has 1 win over a current UFC rostered fighter, and that's Steve Erceg. I was surprised that when I went back through his record, I was like, ask her. Oh, well, Cody Garbrandt. But I don't know how much you want to count that win.
I mean, he splattered him, dude. That was one of the least competitive fights of the year.
That was fucking Garbrandt at 125. Like, he looked like a meth head.
I can't remember what the closing line was there, but I remember my article said, like, Garbrandt decision, but I'm betting KKF by knockout.
Yeah. So he beat Askar Askarov, Garbrandt, Banter, and Tyson Nam. And he got finished by Moreno and Royval. So his margin for error is not as much as Pantoja. And I was thinking to myself, like, okay, Pantoja's 35 at flyweight. That's kind of like approaching death sentence. But is Pantoja actually getting better? the older he gets, because like the way that he gets takedowns now, like I think his wrestling is not that good. So like when I was initially thinking about like, yeah, he's gonna have a hard time getting Kai Kara France down. But similar to what we were talking about with Chins eventually going, Slavikov's, barely escaping getting finished multiple times. At some point, if you give up your back and are in a deep rear naked choke, you're probably eventually going to get submitted. And now you're facing, the best guy at that given skill set. And another thing is Pantoja doesn't necessarily need takedowns in order to take his back. If you watch the Askarov fight, Askarov had a tough time getting Kai down. He did get him down one time in round one, and that led to the standing back take, but, it was late in the round. I don't really know how good Askarov is really good, how good he is at actually finishing that position. Then you go the rest of the fight, Askarov is fighting takedown attempts, or Kai Kara-France is fighting takedown attempts from Askarov, and he's closing the distance, but he's not able to finish these takedowns. If Pantoja is in similar positions as Askarov, he doesn't have to take him down. He can just take his back standing. And I think that's what Askarov was trying to do, just he doesn't have that same kind of ability as Pantoja. So honestly, like initially I was thinking I like the over and I like Kai Kara-France by decision. Now I'm kind of leaning the under, honestly.
Well, I think that I tend to lean a little bit towards the under here. I do think both guys are live to finish. That's why. I will say if it goes the distance, I think it's a competitive fight. That's also why I like the underdog here. But to your point, like, did I see things in the Albazi fight that made me think Kai Kara-France could get submitted here? Yes. Like, just plain and simple, like the way he got kind of ripped through on that body lock attempt and then Albazi was taking his back, that did look concerning, right? But on the other side, that Albazi fight, personally, I thought KKF got jobbed there. I don't know what you thought.
Yeah.
I was picking Albazi pre. I thought it was a robbery. So that would be a win over a rostered athlete. I would point out that, Askarov, right? Like, let's go back and revisit this real quick. I believe that this has been memory hold by the average UFC fan, but this happened, right? Askarov, he didn't get cut because he wasn't a good fighter. He got cut because he's boring as sin and, they didn't want to promote him, right? It's the promotion business. He kept beating guys they'd rather promote. So they were like, get him out of here, please. But like that fight with KKF was super close. Could have went either way. KKF gets the nod, right? I thought it was a wrong decision on the night. KKF gets the nod. The crowd in Ohio was very anti-Russia. Let's just leave it at that. But if you look at, where we saw Pantoja, he wasn't able to have a lot of wrestling and grappling success there either, right? So like Askar is just a really good wrestler. That's all he does really, really well. Everything else is just okay. So I think that when I look at these two guys, I see pass for both guys and I see a competitive, honest fight. Even that fight that they had in the past on The Ultimate Fighter so long ago, you don't want to read too much into it. KKF defended a lot of the takedowns. He got back up to his feet. He defended some bad positions. So it just seems to me like both guys are getting better over time, right? We talk about, let's compare common opponents. Pantoja fights Urseg. Bro, Urseg fucking makes one bad decision, costs himself the fight. I made that point earlier. Then he fights fucking KKF. How'd that go for him? He didn't have a chance. He didn't have a hope nor a prayer. He was getting fucked up. He got literally lifted off his feet by a right hand. So it just seems to me like both these guys bring something, potent to the table here. But one guy gets a lot of credit because he's the champ and he's on a nice run. If you separate Kai Kara-France and look at his results, right? Let's talk about the fact he was favored his first 7 fights in a row in the UFC, right? Since then, what has he been? An underdog every time out, my brother. So he went from being favored 7 fights in a row to being an underdog 5 fights in a row. Over that stretch, he's 3-2 and probably got jobbed once. So I don't know. Just seems to me like the guy's doing all right, And for me, the last thing I'll note here is I like betting on proven commodities, right? So if you bet on Pantoja as a favorite, you're doing fine, right? He's made money. He's printed. Betting on Kai Kara-France as an underdog, similar, like 59% ROI or something, 3-2, decent sample size, most of it very recent. So for me, I think the market has undervalued Kai Kara-France quite clearly throughout his recent run, myself included. I thought Erceg would win. I thought Erceg might have something for him on the mat. And you know what happened? He got splattered before he ever had a chance to grapple. And I just wouldn't be stunned if Kai Kara-France did the same thing here, or if we saw Pantoja have to show a little bit more respect, coming in, right? Like a lot of guys, he kind of just walks them down with impunity because they don't have the power to hurt him. And it's like, I just think he's going to know Kai Kara-France could hurt him. So for me,
don't you think in watching the Askarov fight, like the positions that Askarov had against Kai Kara-France against the fence in round 2, don't you think Pantoja just jumps up and takes his back?
I think he could, but the problem that I have is that I've seen Pantoja take guys back, like I mentioned before, and not finish. So like, what if he takes his back and then doesn't finish, and then he's more tired coming into the third round? Because the other thing is, I think Pantoja has high ruled the fact that he gets tired in these fights, and it hasn't cost him yet. Like I even think to that first Moreno title fight, right? Because obviously it had beaten him prior. He came out like a bat out of hell, on fire in round 1. And bro, I thought he looked exhausted coming into the second round and had to recompose himself and kind of get it back. He's well conditioned, ATT, great team. He does a lot of things right. I just think that his tenacity has overcame a lot of flaws, right? Like he has a heart of a champion, no doubt about it. Fights with hatred in his heart, a lot of things that are positives, but just fight skills for fight skills. Like I think that the fight's more honest than the line. So that's why.
Yeah. But I think being able to dig deep and, fight through these firefights is something that not everyone can do. And I personally haven't seen Kai Kara-France do that. Can he do that this weekend? I definitely think he could, but he's definitely.
Well, if Albazi result is flipped, we'd say he faced some adversity against Albazi, won the fight, right?
Yeah. I don't know.
And Albazi disappeared for a while after that too, but he was considered like up and coming guy. People were pretty high on him at the time.
I don't know where to put that Albazi win, because Albazi just got clowned by Moreno in the following fight, but he was coming off neck surgery and a long layoff. So I don't really know how good Albazi honestly is. This is definitely an intriguing fight. It can go a lot of different ways, and I'm glad we're talking it out because it's a very compelling fight, and I want to figure out who I think is going to actually win it so I can make $1 million on DraftKings this weekend.
I absolutely love it. Before we get off this fight and move to the main event, I got to give you one more time. He responded to adversity. Rogerio Bontorin comes out like a house on fire, takes his back, does everything he wants to for a little bit, and then Kai Kara-France said, hey, do me a favor and hold these. Boom. Watch the frame on the uppercut, guys. Watch the frame on the uppercut. In 3, 2, hold this. Goodbye. Saturday night and new. Kai Kara-France.
I think. Book it. Yeah, I think he's definitely live to have a similar outcome, get a TKO.
Bontorin now grappled Makayev. I'm just saying.
And Royval, he got robbed.
Oh my dude, I think I bet him there. Don't even remind me. I'll be sick in my hands. But great calls all around. I'm glad that we had that discussion. Truth is, guys, I had said at the beginning of the week, like if you're on Pantoja, grab the plus 2XX on the sub. Like that's the way I see him winning this fight and justifying the price. I think if he doesn't get that sub, it's going to be a lot sweatier than the number. That's my God's honest feeling. So that's what I'm sharing with you guys. Now we move to two of my literal favorite fighters on the roster, right? Charles Oliveira. I don't know who doesn't like this guy. You'd have to have your head examined. He's one of the most fun fighters in UFC history, period. In terms of entertainment value, I don't know that you could ask for much more than the entertainment quotient of a Charles Oliveira fight. On the other side, I think Ilia Topuria is making a clear argument for being one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, one of the best pound-for-pound fighters of all time, but he's still got a lot of work to do, right? He's already put away 2 all-time great featherweights via knockout brutally, left no doubt. So that was a great set of performances. Now he's moving up in weight. He's taking on another legend of the sport, and I would not be surprised if he left him on the highlight reel again. I love Charles, but Charles has been hurt a million times, and I've talked about it before this week when I did my show with VB. I think Charles gets a lot of respect from guys that do not want to go to the ground with him. They know what kind of problems that will present for them. Look at Chimaev against Gilbert Burns. If you've got great guard game, guys will show it respect, right? But I think when you look at Ilia Topuria, his confidence is not, one-to-one with his peers. He is the most confident man in the UFC. I do not think he has any doubt in his mind that he could grapple with Charles Oliveira, that he could wrestle with Charles Oliveira, and that if he hurts this guy, he could pass his guard, get on top of him, and do what he needs to finish the fight. So I look at this as, hey, two great fighters in their prime. We're probably having a different conversation, but kind of like some people were saying, hey, it's a big gap when you're talking about Hyder or Mills fight, right? It's a big gap. But fighting a guy who's proven nothing, right? As opposed to, this is a big gap, and both guys have shown that they're championship level fighters. But one guy, his championship peak was a couple years ago, and he's since been, win one, lose one, having competitive rounds, minutes with Michael Chandler, who's not of this ilk, right? Like, there's some certain things that are red flaggish for me on the Charles side. And Ilia, it's like a lot of green flags except the size. He's a younger guy. He hits like a fucking truck. He's got great skills in all positions. His confidence is through the roof. His momentum couldn't be better. I think Ilia wins this fight, and probably in devastating fashion in the first 2 rounds. What do you think, my brother? Am I crazy?
No, I mean, he's minus 450 for a reason. I think he's a bad stylistic matchup for Oliveira. Any guy who is, I think Ilia is going to be very difficult to beat. I think like Justin Gaethje probably has a better chance of beating Ilia than Charles Oliveira. To beat Ilia, I think you need to bring him into a firefight, be able to have some decent defensive grappling, and then just have insane cardio and pace. Oliveira does not have the durability, the takedown defense to be able to beat Ilia, in my opinion. Like, Charles, he went on this little run, and like, obviously he's an excellent fighter, but a lot of the guys that he is beating like have pretty poor defensive grappling. And I think anyone who can match him in the grappling department is probably going to have his number. I know, like, obviously Sarukian and Makhachev are very high level. I just have Topuria on that level too. So, there's a reason why he's a big favorite. Oliveira taking a ton of damage. But Ilia is, the jump in weight class, you do kind of have to make some assumptions. But based on everything I've seen, like, I don't know. I think Topuria is just a really bad matchup for Oliveira. Oliveira, 35 years old. He's just been through so many wars over the years. I don't think it's who wins. I think it's how does he win is the more interesting question. I do think that the fight could potentially stretch a little longer than some people are thinking. Like, a lot of people think that it's going to be a KO round 1. That's what he's saying. Like, that's all good and all, but like,
when's the last time a fighter was like, I'm going to go out there and it's going to be a boring 25-minute decision?
Yeah, exactly. So I honestly think a late submission is potentially a cheeky way to play Topuria, or like sub 234. Listen, Bryce Mitchell is super hittable, easy to hit on the feet. Ilia submitted him. Sir, yeah, I know. I don't know. It's hard to call, honestly, because I could see a KO or submission, but you're giving me plus 700 or whatever on the submission. That has my attention.
You know something, man? That was the first thing I sent on Patreon this week. I didn't bet it, but like I just said, guys, if you're looking for like a sneaky angle, the sub at plus 7XX is just probably wrong. Just like how I was pricing it out in my head, because I don't think Ilia is the kind of guy that is like, hey, I hurt Charles. Let's call him back up to the feet. Again, I think he would just go to the ground and do whatever logically followed, right? We saw Bryce Mitchell, best known skills are on the ground. And then he got submitted by Ilia because he was trying to wrestle back into him while he was hurt. And then Ilia just threw him to the ground, grabbed the head and arm choke, and that was the end. And by the way, was it that dissimilar to what happened when Islam fought Charles? Charles, one of my favorite fighters, which I mentioned. But in that fight, like I just dumped my whole bet online account before the fight when Charles was getting all the money in the world, bro. He opened like plus 250 or whatever, right? then minus 185 Islam Makhachev for the limit. Like, I was just like, whatever I have, go ahead, and we'll just see how this turns out, right? And Charles defaulted back to some of the bad habits, tendencies, whatever you want to say. He got put in the choke and he said, hey, get me out of here. I don't need this anymore in my life. And when you're 35 and you're a former champion and you've got all the respect in the world and like you have literally nothing left to prove, you're the all-time wins, finishes, but fucking pick a record that he doesn't have. You know, he's already done everything that there is to do in this sport, including winning a weight class title. And now he's on the back nine as far as I'm concerned. And meanwhile, Ilia Topuria, 28 years of age, the guy is just coming into his prime, and he seems like he's the most confident guy in the UFC with skills in all positions. Who wants to fight this guy? Nobody. So I think when it comes down to it, there's just a lot of things going Ilia's way. I will note this, though. One way that I would look to potentially play this, and this is based on my long experience of watching Charles Oliveira fights, the guy is an unders machine. I'm not saying that it's going to be an under here. At 1.5, I'm really not interested in that kind of bet, honestly, just because when you've got 5 rounds to work, sometimes guys come out a little bit more tentative. They take their time a little bit. Ilia Topuria, for as confident as he is, in my humble opinion, never rushes. He's patient. He will execute on the kill when the opportunity comes. He will not force it. I used to say, don't chase the pin. Let it materialize. If you're out wrestling somebody, when you get them frustrated, when they start to make mistakes, the pin will materialize. That, for me, is what Ilia does with his knockouts, right? He comes forward, he's waiting for you to make a mistake, he's waiting, he's moving, and then when he sees the opportunity, snap, he just goes and he capitalizes on it quickly, and the fight's over. And unfortunately, I think that's what's going to happen here. The under 2.5 rounds is minus 175 on DraftKings. Haven't bet that. DraftKings doesn't let me play. If y'all are allowed to play over there, I will just note I'm on OddsJam. I'll share this with you guys. Market average, minus 208, minus 225 on Bally, minus 225 on Rivers, minus 210 on ESPN Bet, minus 215 on Flip. So you're talking about a bunch of different other sports books that have priced this out. They're all saying minus 2XX. I agree with them, right? I think 70% of the time this fight ends in under 2.5 rounds. And the reason I say that is because when you look at Charles Oliveira's career, he's been a fucking under 2.5 producer, right? Many of his fights were 3-rounders, and most of them ended under that 2.5 round clip. But then you look at, all right, he's done 5-round fights. Most of those are ending in under 2.5 as well. You look at his title fights. Most of those are ending in under 1.5. It's like there's just been a lot of violence in Charles Oliveira fights, win, lose, or indifferent, right? And on the other side, Ilia Topuria, he's heavily favored to win the fight. He's heavily favored to finish it. He's saying he's going to do it in the first round. That would fit the criteria. Round 2 knockout. That would fit the criteria. First 2 minutes of round 3. That would fit the criteria. So for me, that just opens up a lot of win equity on both athletes, right? Like, how does Charles win this fight if not with an opportunistic submission, with a catch him on the chin type of thing? Ilia is a pretty difficult guy to get rounds off of, right? And when he fought Josh Emmett, it was a drubbing over 25 minutes. It was like 50-43, you know? So I just think it's not easy to get a scorecard against this guy either. He's a very sound fighter in all different positions. He's probably, a little more likely to get top position. Why do I say that? Lower center of gravity. It's very hard to out wrestle guys like that. So for me, there's just a lot of things that lend themselves to violence here. And both guys are willing participants in that. You look at Ilia's fights, has it been smooth sailing at all times? Like, no, you can point to the fights where he's gotten hurt, and that makes him more aggressive. When he gets hurt, he goes for a takedown, whatever, to recompose himself, and then he's on the feet, sending Jai Herbert to a land from which he never came back. It's like that's the kind of power and devastation that he brings. So for me, I just definitely lean towards violence here, and kind of surprised to see that total.
There's something so beautiful about the way Topuria fights. Like good lovemaking, he doesn't rush it. He takes his time. He lets it build up. He waits. He's so clean and precise about how he fights, and then he strikes when the iron is hot. And after he finishes you, he leaves a rose, at your feet and walks away. The guy is very, very smooth, at everything except for talking on the microphone. He has no shit talking game, which is okay. He doesn't try to pretend to be something that he's not. You know what I mean? And like we were talking about before with how it's gonna finish. I think that obviously he'll finish him any way he sees fit, whatever materializes. But I think he has a lot of respect for Oliveira. I think he truly respects him as an athlete. And, if he hurts him and goes to the ground with him, and he's like, hey, maybe I'm not going to inflict a ton of damage on this guy. Let me just take his neck home. I think he would be completely okay with knocking out Volkanovski, knocking out Holloway, and then submitting Charles Oliveira.
I could see that for sure. But I also think if you put together a 3-fight run where you knock out all 3 of those guys in a row, it's like when you talk about the casual perception of this sport, they get what a sub is, but like it just doesn't feel the same to them, UFC BJJ, they're like trying to, familiarize people. They're like, come on, submissions are cool. But when it comes down to it, man, the thing that goes more viral than anything else in this sport, the thing that puts asses in seats, is fucking knockouts. And I think Ilia is a knockout machine. So like that's the only thing that kept me off the sub was like I think he's gonna have opportunities if he wants them. I don't think he wants them, bro. I think this guy is gonna try and put a hammer through his head. But to your point, from an ego standpoint, I see where you're coming from. The guy wants that like feather in the cap. I submitted Oliveira, the all-time sub leader, but I also think he's the kind of guy that's like, I don't change anything for anybody. I'm coming to KO this guy because that's what I do. And it's just gonna knock him the fuck out.
Yeah.
So that's my fear.
I do kind of believe him when he says he's going to do something, that he's going to do it. But when's the last time? I guess it's been a while since we've seen Oliveira go clean out.
Dude, I don't think I can remember a time, honestly. Let me think back. I know he got beat up by Paul Felder from the full guard. I know he had that esophagus injury versus Max Holloway, which was kind of a phantom one, but still. There was the maybe it was Cub Swanson, which I don't think was a clean knockout either. He kind of just hurt him and put him down. This is all from memory, guys. If I'm getting any of this wrong, I apologize.
That was 13 years ago.
Holy shit, dude. I'm old.
Yeah, he's not been put out clean, which is
oh man. Oh no, it's gonna be like Max, bro. Fuck. We don't need this shit in our life.
No, this is going to be the time where he does get put out clean.
I have a bad feeling, man. I really do. Love Charles, but dude, a lot of these fights, man, he gets hit clean, and you know what he does, bro? He lays there and he starts doing the leg kicks up in it, bro. It's just like I think Topuria would go push that all to the side, and then he'd be in the top position.
Like a rerun of the Ryan Hall fight.
Honestly, yeah. And dude, if you look at that fight, his ground and pound is devastating. So like we don't get to see it a lot because they're dead when they hit the ground. But like, bro, when he starts throwing at guys on the ground, he fucks them up. So my guy Artem says if Charles pulls guard, I'm gonna start crying. I totally relate, brother. This is going to be a tough watch as a fan for me because again, I hate to see my favorites fight. Somebody's got to lose.
Dude, he just needs to just like spam kicks and then use it to close the distance to try to take him down and potentially take his back early.
I think the path for Charles is to hurt Ilia because like the one thing I will say is if you've seen Ilia get hurt before, right? I think it happened against Gonclaves in the regional scene. It happened against Jai Herbert. He wrestles right after guys. Like if he gets hurt, this is self-preservation instincts. He goes, let me get a hold of this guy, grab him, take him to the ground. And he's done it multiple times, right? He gets hurt by Jai Herbert. He's not even off his ass before he starts shooting the takedown, guys. He's like shooting from the ground. He's like, fuck this guy. I'm taking him down. If you do that against Charles, that shit could get dicey in a hurry, right? Like triangle arm bars, fucking guillotines, all that he's really nasty with. So I think if these two men are sober, the grappling is a lot closer than people realize. Like I think Ilia is just that good. Like he can grapple with Charles sober. But when you're not sober, right, you get dinged about the head and you start making some grappling decisions, that's when you get caught. Kai Kara-France against Brandon Royval. That's how he got caught, man. Royval was a plus 190 underdog. People thought KKF would win. He comes out, drops him with the left hand, and while he's on one knee, Royval was like spinning back elbow, and then he hurt him so bad. Like that's the kind of thing where I'm looking at, you need kind of creativity and whatever to avoid getting subbed. Kai Kara-France got hurt, shoots in a takedown, puts his neck in the hole, and that's the end of it. And I think that's the way Charles would get him. I don't think he's grappling him sober, Could be wrong, but that's the way I see it.
Dude, he couldn't even finish fucking Michael Chandler, and Paddy Pimblett, like, absolutely ran through him,
Absolutely. And dude, like, that fight, This is a personal opinion. I feel like Charles against Chandler, and I say this as somebody that picked Chandler both times that they fought. I feel like Charles went out there that second fight to show he could fight for 25 minutes. Because if you remember, people were giving him grief about his cardio. He does normally not go the full, 25 or whatever. He finishes guys early. And in that fight, bro, he's like on his back, like just chilling. Like he's like looking at the crowd. Like I just didn't feel like he was as aggressive as he normally is. I feel like he kind of disrespected him. He's like, this guy can't do fuck all to me. I'll just stay out here for 25 minutes. And then he got hurt late because Chandler's such a cheater. But I really think Charles put it in cruise control and was like, I can fight 25. Fuck it.
He got paid off by the sports books because everyone was hammering the unders and doesn't go the distance and shit like that.
Yeah, that's the quiet part out loud, but yeah, I wouldn't be stunned by that either, brother. Welcome back to Las Vegas, guys. My brother, that's the end of it. That's everything we got on this card. I think we did a damn good job sharing our thoughts with the people. I want to give the floor to you, my brother. Anything you've got to say about this card, about your stuff, about your work, anything that you've got going on, the floor is yours, my brother.
Yeah, man. Had a blast breaking this card down. Really looking forward to it. Thank you. Not here to sell anything or promote anything. If anyone wants to collaborate, I'm always looking to get new PBH accounts, or if you want to exchange plays. Not selling picks anymore, but I'm always down to chat fights with sharp people. If you are, slide to my DMs, follow me on Twitter. Thanks again, Liam. Good luck this weekend.
Likewise, my brother. Always good luck to you. I wanted to say thanks so much for being here, brother. It's a pleasure always when we get to hop on here. One of my New York brethren as well. And guys, I truly believe one of the sharpest opinions out, one of the best guys in the space as well, just in terms of human beings, guys I like to talk to, interact with. One of my all-time favorite guests, friend of the show forever. You're welcome anytime, my brother. You know that. And it was a pleasure for me as well. So I wish you the best of luck. I hope that we both take down UFC 317. Want to say thank you so much to the sharpest chat in the game. We got 153 people rocking with us live, and it's 11 o'clock already on the East. Thank you all so much for taking time out of your day. If you haven't already, hit that like button. If you want to show love and support, hit the subscribe as well. Easy way to make sure that these always show up in your feed. God bless. Good luck. Come back next time. We're having all the same fun again. Until tomorrow when we do the post weigh-in show with Brother Wiz. Take care, everybody, and have a great night.